People who perform sexual favors in school or in the workplace to get ahead? What was it for? And what are things like now? Story 1. My old manager had an odd fixation on female workers wearing bright lipstick. He offered an extra $3 per hour to me and an older coworker if we would sport some red lipstick while on the job. As a minor, his offer never made me feel uncomfortable, though I had the sense that it was linked to a fetish. In addition to the pay incentive, he also offered my coworker $100 for a picture of her feet. Story 2. This creepy professor at the university I attend had a penchant for courting and betting his PhD students, who were generally in their mid-20s. Rather than the students taking advantage of their professor, it seemed to be the other way around. This man had a way of exploiting the students' father issues. Shockingly, he eventually married one of them, and the pair now have children. The woman continued her PhD studies until she finally earned her degree, and the university, despite knowing about these inappropriate relationships, chose not to intervene since everyone involved was an adult. Their research group was likely an uncomfortable place to be, to say the least. Story 3. When I was in high school, my older cousin moved in with us, and before I knew it, he had struck up a relationship with my math teacher. Suddenly, my grades started to soar, and I was earning A's instead of my usual C's. When my cousin announced he was going to end the relationship, I practically begged him to keep it going just a little bit longer, until the end of the school year. To my delight, he agreed, and I was able to secure an A for the rest of the year. He really is a great guy. Story 4. A customer service representative, convinced he should have been in tech support, came over to try and get me to support his ludicrous claim to the other customer support people. We worked for an internet company that required customers to have a diamond-shaped antenna on their homes pointed in a particular direction in order to receive service. This technology was outdated and eventually phased out, leading to numerous layoffs. But he suggested we could simply send internet to their houses and any satellite dish would be sufficient. I looked him in the eye and said, "That's completely ridiculous. You have no clue how any of this works, and that claim is wrong." The woman he was trying to impress burst into laughter, and he scurried away in embarrassment. Story 5. My first job at a retail store almost 10 years ago was anything but ordinary. From the day of orientation, the trainer and manager had a thing for me, and the flirting began. One closing shift, she took me in the back, and we used one of the display beds, and the wild and passionate sex that followed was unforgettable. But I was oblivious to the fact she was wearing a wedding ring until afterwards, when she told me her husband was totally cool with it. This led to me visiting her apartment for more steamy encounters, and our connection seemed to be growing. But before I knew it, I had left the job and our connection fizzled out. She's since had a baby, and I've gotten married and had 2 of my own. What I didn't know was that she had been cheating on her husband with me, something I found out through mutual coworkers. Story 6. I was a 24-year-old man working in customer service when my female manager started flirting with me. She offered to take me out to a bar to discuss potential career moves, and I decided to go. Things got a bit heated, and we ended up back at my place. We had a wild 2 weeks of passion, and then she told me that I was getting moved over to the internal help desk, and she also paid for all my certifications, took me on trips, paid my rent, and bought me a laptop and an Xbox. One of the trips she took me on was to Vegas, and she even gave me $3,000 to gamble with. It turned out she was from a very wealthy family, and her generosity changed my life. I've been in IT and making an above-average income for the last 10 years, all because of her. Story 7. 10 years ago, I had a physically demanding job at a warehouse. I was slinging around boxes weighing over 130 pounds, which left me incredibly fit after just 4 months. While the other warehouses had automated the job, the office manager seemed to prefer me, as I was more efficient and accurate than any robot. One day, she asked for my assistance with some heavy lifting in her office. My shoulder was giving me grief, so she noticed and told me she used to be a massage therapist. Before I knew it, her hands had left my shoulder and were now on my groin. I was pleasantly surprised. She was attractive, and all of our coworkers had left for the day, so I took advantage of the situation. 3 days later, I was given a $3 hourly raise amidst an ongoing pay freeze. She justified it by saying that I was beating the robots. We continued to have a few intimate moments every week, and she even gave me a few extra paid days off each month to ensure my shoulder was in good condition. Story 8. On the senior year Spanish class trip to Mexico, me and some of my fellow students snuck out one night to go to a club. To our surprise, our teacher was there too, and she was drunk. When I ran into her in the bathroom, I told her that I wouldn't rat her out if she didn't tell anyone about us being there. She started to cry, and I took her out back to calm down. Before I knew it, we were making out and ended up having sex by the dumpster of Pedro O'Horny's. We ended up having a passionate affair over the course of the next 5 nights. However, on the last night, she realized that we couldn't keep doing this, and I agreed. She was an amazing lover, taking care of me in a way I'd never experienced before. When we got back on the plane home, she ran up to her fiancé as if nothing had happened. For the rest of the school year, I got 100% on every assignment, which I wasn't going to argue with. We ran into each other a few years after college, and she told me that I had the worst paper in her class, yet I still got 100%. She had tried to rekindle our romance. Story 9. When I was 19, I moved into my first apartment, and my landlord, a mid-40s woman, was incredibly friendly with me. After I had moved in, she offered to help me unpack, gave me her personal number, and told me to get in touch if I needed anything. We started flirting via text messages, and one night, when she mentioned she was bored, I invited her over to watch a movie. She showed up with a 6-pack of beer, and after that day, I never had to pay another penny for rent. Story 10. When I was in college, I worked at a family-owned restaurant and found myself in a situation I had not expected. The manager, the owner's wife, made advances towards me, and I accepted. I was given access to all the perks of being a favorite, calling out when I wanted, leaving early, getting the good tables and shifts, free food, and unlimited smoke breaks. Although I was enjoying the benefits, my coworkers began to despise me, and it made the whole situation awkward. When I began dating someone else my own age, the manager became unstable, and I was eventually fired for an unknown reason. But I knew it was because she couldn't bear to see me if I didn't want her. She continued to contact me for months and even showed up at my apartment and lied, claiming she was pregnant. When she arrived at my new job and caused a huge scene, I almost got fired. All in all, it was an experience that had a lasting impact. 4 out of 10 wouldn't recommend. Story 11. My best friend had an intense and passionate affair with our smoking hot art teacher. At the time, she was 27 and single, and he was 18, about to start his senior year. Though some of us knew or had suspicions, the relationship was kept quiet from the administrators. A year later, she returned with my friend's surname, and the school acted as if nothing happened. A few years after that, they had a son, and a few years after that, they divorced. Tragically, my friend passed away in a car accident in Tennessee, and the teacher has since retired. During our interactions, she has been very understanding about everything, and their son has grown into a great man, the spitting image of his father. Story 12. I was in high school when I noticed something suspicious between one of my classmates and a teacher. My mom was also a teacher at the time, so I would often wander around the school after classes had finished, and I noticed the girl lingering in the teacher's classroom for a while after everyone else had gone. I reported what I had seen, but as it was near the end of the school year and I had no proof, no action was taken. The teacher left our town and moved to a larger city in the same state so that he could write books. About a year later, however, we saw on the news that he had broken into a college dormitory, tied up a student, and raped her. He apparently held her captive for a couple of days. It was a shockingly disturbing story. Story 13. I had a retail management position once, and I developed a relationship with one of my part-time employees. Every Wednesday, she would stay late with me, and we would get intimate in the storage room while carrying out inventory duties. Even though I didn't give her any preferential treatment, when it was time for her to be promoted, I used my seniority to get her a managerial role at a different store.